Growing up, my brothers and I were really picky eaters. Bad. So my mom was constantly trying to accommodate us in the kitchen. Every once in a while, instead of giving us something we wanted, Mom would serve something she wanted. She loved pot roast. My brothers and I, we wanted rare roast beef. We thought it was a sin to waste a perfectly good piece of meat by cooking it to death. Today, on Say It With Food, we're talking about Mom's pot roast. Mom made us eat that pot roast because she had power over us. Now, most of the time, her form of power was in the form of, because I said so, that's why. But really, that's a form of power. There are lots of different types of power. And as we're making Mom's pot roast today, we're going to be talking about all the ways that you can exert power. Hi, I'm Marianne Dainton, and I'm a professor of communication at Salle University.
One of the things I teach my students is that there are lots of different ways to send messages. One of my favorite ways is to say it with food. In this show, I will combine two of my passions, interpersonal communication and cooking. So join me as I teach you how to send a message in the tastiest way possible, through food.
This is a heck of a pot roast. It's a 4-pound rump roast. Mom always made rump roast. Now I know a lot of people swear by chuck. My mom thinks the rump roast is the best of all the pot roasts. One little thing you need to know. We're going to try to brown and sear off this pot roast, and it's really important that the meat is dry before you do that. So we're just going to gently pat it with some paper towels, just making sure that when we get a sizzle, it's not too much of a sizzle. It's just enough to dry off all of that meat. Okay, and then we need to season it. My family was always all about the pepper, so we use a lot. Use whatever your family uses. I remember when I was growing up and I'd go to my friends' houses, and they didn't even put pepper on the table. I thought that was really odd. And then go back to peppering the rest of the meat. Got to use a lot of seasoning. It's a lot of meat. Okay, it's pretty well seasoned. I'm going to have to quickly rinse my hands and then turn on a heavy Dutch oven. We need to heat it up so we can get our sauté going, but remember that you're using a Dutch oven so that it can go into the oven as well as be on top of the stove.
One time, I really wanted to go to the movies, but I had to stay home and take care of my sisters because my mom said so. In interpersonal communication, my mom and I had a relationship that was complementary, meaning she had all the power and I didn't. In this specific instance, my mom used something called intimacy currency. She used the fact that I was her daughter to get me to do what she wanted. My mom also used something called resource currency, which meant that since I lived in her house, I had to obey her rules. It kind of wasn't fair, but my mom was the one with the power and I had to respect that.
For this recipe, you need just 1 carrot, 1 big stalk of celery, but I've got kind of puny guys, so I'm using 2, 4 cloves of garlic, and 1 large onion. It's a really strong oniony flavor. That's traditional for a pot roast. All we need to do is roughly chop these. The fact of the matter is, these poor veggies are going to give their life to the pot. So it doesn't make sense to waste any energy cutting them fine. The garlic, just a smash and peel will do. No need to slice it at all. Sounds like our tea kettle's ready, so we're going to steep our tea. My mom uses 5 tea bags and just a cup of water, making an intense tea flavor. Okay, we've got the onion to work on next. Once again, this needs to be just rough chopped. Doesn't need to be particularly fancy. These onions are going to cook to death. Just quartering them will do. We've gotten this sucker brown all around, so we just take it out now while we deal with our vegetables. Our vegetables need to go in and pick up some of those brown bits.
I was playing basketball one day. I was about to go home because I was tired, and then my friend asked me to play one more game. I decided to play because we have a symmetrical relationship. Neither of us have power over each other, but I decided to let him have power over me, so I played. The only reason he asked me to play basketball with him because he knows I'm good. That's my expertise currency. And normally in these type of situations, the person with the expertise currency would be in charge, but he was able to flip the script and make me help him.
When we're making the broth, we're starting off with tea. We're finishing up with beef broth. But in addition, we're going to add a little bit of a secret ingredient. And I admit, this is not something that's part of Mom's homemade pot roast. It's called demi-glace. Demi-glace is basically stock that's been reduced so far it looks like a thick paste, sort of like meat jello, although that sounds really nasty. But it adds a great rich flavor. So the first step is to add the tea. This process is called deglazing. It's when you put a liquid into a hot pan, and in the process you scrape up all of the meat bits that have cooked on the bottom of the pan. It adds a great, meaty, rich flavor to it. Once you feel that you don't have any more brown bits left on the bottom, and I don't think we do, we're going to add our meat back into the pan, as well as any of the accumulated juices.
Power can be used ethically or unethically, and my sister definitely uses her power unethically. She's an incredibly selfish and manipulative person who only thinks about what she wants and can get. She uses two types of power currencies: a social network currency and a personal currency. Her social networking currency, she generally makes people feel like they're part of the quote-unquote cool crowd. Now, she does this because they're easy to manipulate, and she kind of plays off them. I mean, I know from experience that this never works. And for her personal currency, she uses her looks and her charm to make people do what she wants. I can't wait for her to go to college.
The process of cooking a pot roast is really braising. And braising is a low, slow cook. When meat's as tough as a pot roast is, it needs a lot of moist heat in order to make it tender. So we're adding 16 ounces of beef stock. It depends on the size of your pot and how much liquid actually cooks off in the deglazing process. And then remember, we're going to add our demi-glace. It's just a spoonful of that weird paste that's going to add lots and lots of flavor. So our last step in cooking our pot roast is just to cook it at 325 degrees in your oven for about 3 to 4 hours. The longer the better. In my mind, a pot roast doesn't always have to slice. Sometimes it shreds and you know it's homemade. There we go. See you in about 3 hours. So there you have it. Mom's pot roast. You know, the funny thing is, I don't remember the last time I had rare roast beef, and yet I crave my mother's pot roast. Who'd have thunk it? So thanks for joining us today on Say It With Food. Until next time, we'll see you on Salle television.